So it was a late summer weekend in Central Texas, and I was looking to get out in the field. Fortunately, my friend Michael called me and said he and his son were headed out to a particular West Texas mountain range and asked if I wanted to go along. Now, there was nothing about this particular West Texas mountain range that interested me, but I had some unfinished business from nearby from decades before. You see, there's a particular species of herp that I had lived within a few hours of for several years and had never made the trip to see. When I suggested a side trip to find this particular critter, Michael admitted that he too had wanted to find this critter, so the deal was done. I would meet him and his son in a small, far West Texas town in a couple of days, and we would chase after this lifer. Now, when people think of herping West Texas, they don't normally think of salamanders, but there are salamanders, at least some salamanders. Yes, there is the widespread, although spottily distributed barred tiger salamander of the desert grasslands, but in the mountains of New Mexico, there are two isolated populations of unique salamanders. These two salamanders from these New Mexico mountain ranges live 500 miles away from the nearest plethodonid salamanders. So I headed west, out through West Texas, bypassing a lot of the more famous herping locations, like this famous mountain range, for which a particular species of snake was originally named. And eventually I made it down to the sleepy West Texas town where we would meet. We had some dinner and we headed out on the road. We had a bit of a drive to get to the mountains we were wanting to herp, and we passed through one of my favorite herping roads en route. It's always tough to drive through this area without thinking back to previous trips and some of the amazing critters I've found along this road. Herping that night would consist of flipping a few rattlesnakes off the road,
and knock the camera into the 8-shot dog. That's good.
and we spent quite a few hours that night walking road cuts in search of foraging snakes, but struck out on the cuts. But one thing about hiking road cuts is you always find something interesting on these West Texas roadsides. One of tonight's surprises was learning about the natural diet of the giant centipede. Who knew they ate chicken wings?
Well, he's made a big hole. He's made a big dent in it already, too.
It's not very nutritious. It's a chicken wing. What if it's a hot wing?
Yeah, it's from Pizza Hut.
That's funny. We could probably sell this to Pizza Hut. Even Scolopendra like our wings.
The next morning, we set out on our 200-mile drive through nothing to get to the salamander locale we had researched. On the way north, we stopped to photograph and videotape a few roadside lizards. Unfortunately for me, my car mates didn't seem to understand what it meant to be quiet while I tried to video out the car window.
He's not trying to scare
The
him for no
cows
reason.
didn't help either.
The cows scared the lizard.
Guys, I'm out of here.
And I am
What, dude?
when cows pee, it's like a river.
Eventually, our road passed through these barren desert flats and began its 6,000-foot climb to our target elevation. First junipers, then some pinyon pines, and finally we made it into the spruces and firs of this montane forest. The cool 10,000-foot mountain air was a wonderful respite after a long, hot Texas summer. Even better was the fact that it had rained during the previous 24 hours, so the ground was damp. And in these southwestern mountains, any rain at all is a great harbinger of salamander activity. We stopped at a likely looking location and set out about our hunt, flipping logs and bark. I'd like to say we hunted for a few hours until, Eureka, I've found one, pierced the mountain air. But the truth is, less than 100 feet from our parked car, I flipped this piece of bark and found one, and then another, and another. In fact, we searched less than 15 minutes and found 12 of these fascinating little Pleistocene relics. We spent a little time documenting our sightings for citizen science and getting some photos, and then, having decided we'd achieved our goal, we decided to head back down to the desert. We drove back down to our previous night's mountain range, but our second night of driving and hiking desert hillsides only produced a couple of other rattlesnakes. We did stop to check out this pocket gopher and examine his bitey end for a few minutes before heading back to our hotel to call it a night and a successful trip. It had been a great trip. Time spent herping with friends and a lifer to boot. You can't ask for much more than that. Thanks for watching.